elites are using guilt and predictions of global catastrophe to force a massive and unprecedented change in the human diet. The true motivations are familiar: money and the monopolization of the food supply, leading to the destruction of family farms, further industrialization of food, and increased control. The world's farmers produce enough food to feed 1.5 times the global population. That's enough to feed 10 billion people. There are only 7.6 billion people on Earth today, but actors are begging you to put ground mealworms in your smoothies.
Now what is this? This looks like I could make cocoa with this. What is that?
Well, that's an insect-based premium protein.
Insect-based premium protein.
It's made from Molitor, which is mealworm larvae.
Mealworm larvae.
Bill Gates invested in bug farms. The World Economic Forum says eating insects will solve hunger and save the planet.
The world is facing a serious food supply crisis.
Nonprofits, environmental activists, and insect producers scream about the benefits of insects to the planet, global hunger, and the economy.
Our planet genuinely is on a collision course.
And millions of dollars have been spent lobbying governments to make bugs legal food. With the propaganda campaign in full swing, we'll look at the arguments, the motivations, who benefits, and how a global, uncensorable currency like Bitcoin could help solve global hunger. Let's dive in. Human consumption of insects is not new, but they have never been a major source of protein or a staple food, and there's no evidence that they were ever critical to food security in any culture outside of famines. Europeans brought back new foods from all over the world. But European traders, guided by market forces, never saw the need to import grubs, grasshoppers, or tarantulas. There simply wasn't a demand for them. Europeans' nutrient needs could be better solved with traditional animal protein. Guilt trips. So why do eco-warriors insist that the only way we can survive and thrive as a species is to eat insects? To understand, we have to look at guilt trips, popular interest campaigns that have, for centuries, tried to manipulate people's behavior by making them feel bad about how they live. In 1798, English cleric Thomas Malthus published his now famous book, An Essay on the Principle of Population. The work is famous for the concept called the Malthusian Trap, the assertion that population would always outpace agricultural production, causing wars, famine, poverty, and death. Many thinkers in the 1800s insisted that the human population had to be artificially controlled to prevent the coming Malthusian catastrophe. They spearheaded the eugenics movement, the artificial manipulation of human reproduction through government control. In the United States, immigration limits were put into place on the basis of race, and countless women and petty criminals were involuntarily sterilized. Between the 1930s and the 1970s, 1/3 of Puerto Rican women were sterilized. And in California, a total of 20,108 people were sterilized by the state.
In Mary Franco's case, she was being sexually abused by a middle-aged man. Instead of receiving treatment for her trauma, a mental asylum in Southern California used her abuse to justify a tubal ligation, coercing her parents to sign these papers when she was still a child.
Many of these eugenicists truly believed that they were humanitarians and that their actions were for the betterment of the species, to prevent further pain and death. In the early 1900s, the Nazi Party took up eugenics as a cornerstone of their racist collectivist ideology, inspired by and supported by Californian eugenicists. However, the Malthusian trap turned out to be complete fiction. Agricultural production has in fact outpaced population growth, and family sizes in affluent Western countries have been shrinking. Furthermore, global population growth rates are declining. Famine is no longer the top global killer, replaced by heart disease. If Malthusians had just let free market forces determine food and population supply instead of trying to tinker with human reproduction, untold suffering could have been avoided. Why they say they want us to eat bugs. So this brings us back to the current guilt trip. You need to eat bugs to feed starving people and save the planet. The advocates of this strategy often talk about the same thing the Malthusians did. The population is skyrocketing and we won't be able to feed all the people. Putting aside that global population growth is declining and food is abundant, how do Westerners eating bugs today help starving people, now or in the future? As we mentioned, there is currently more than enough food to feed all humans on the planet. The problem is that food isn't as mobile in the global south. Government restrictions, conflicts, protectionist policies, and government currency manipulation make it harder to import wheat from India to Somalia. The Somali currency isn't a strong enticement to Indian wheat producers, and shipping it would be a logistics nightmare. Modern-day hunger isn't a production problem, it's a distribution problem, with governments largely getting in the way. Lastly, is feeding insects to starving people good for their health? One study found that 81% of insect farms had detectable parasites. 30% of those parasites could cause disease in humans. And these farms were all in heavily regulated Western countries. Just feeding the grain to starving people looks like the better option here for the earth. The second argument is that we eat bugs for the planet.
So, eating more bugs would be a lot better for the environment.
There are a couple problems with this. First, ending animal agriculture in the US is estimated to have a net greenhouse gas reduction of only 2.6%. And insect agriculture would likely do less, since large amounts of land would still be needed to grow insect feed. Second, all the efficiency calculations assume fully grain-fed livestock. Bug advocates rely heavily on how much more efficiently insects convert grain to protein versus livestock. In the Western industrialized food system, chicken and pigs are almost exclusively fed on soy and corn. However, cattle are not. Even the common grain finished cattle spend the majority of their life at pasture, eating grass and playing an important role in their ecosystem. Humans cannot eat grass, and you cannot farm insects in a pasture. Is the solution to turn all these biologically diverse pastures, many on low fertility soil, into monocrop farms, growing grain to feed insects? Why do they really want us to eat bugs? Now let's look at the incentives of these insect producers. Much like processed food, insect protein is very cheap to produce and has the potential to be incredibly profitable. Bingo! Higher feed to protein efficiency means higher profits. The efficiency has the potential to edge out meat and dairy protein and eliminate traditional food producers. Insect farming is expected to be an $8 billion industry by 2030. The Gates Foundation, of course, a long time,
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
The Gates Foundation, a longtime pusher of apocalyptic prediction, has offered a grant to Florida-based insect producer All Things Bugs. And Winesec, a French-based insect company, has joined the World Economic Forum and has raised over $404 million US. They have also spent millions lobbying the EU to change food laws. They say they are just getting started. The insect production industry is one of the fastest growing in the food space. With an annual growth of 29.05%, after several decades, it could rival the dairy industry for market size. Insect production could also be highly centralized. In large vertical farms, crickets are grown in plastic bins in large warehouses. Unlike dairy or meat, crickets can literally be produced in a factory. This means a few large companies can dominate the entire industry by leveraging economies of scale and bankrupt smaller farmers and ranchers. Traditional agricultural industries are already heavily subsidized by the US government to the tune of billions of dollars per year. The Cato Institute found that farmers get over 40% of their income directly from US government farm subsidy payments. 40%. All of these subsidies take a top-down, central planned approach. This is why cheap soy and corn-based junk food lacking in nutrition dominates supermarket shelves in America and the diets of the poor. If insect producers can portray themselves as healthy, environmentally responsible, and the saviors of the starving, they'll be in a wonderful position to take advantage of additional government handouts. If people want to eat insects, they should be able to. There are even places where insects could improve the quality and nutrition of factory farm livestock. Chickens and fish are natural insectivores, and their eggs and meat are higher quality on a diet of insects rather than a diet of grains. But a group of elites manipulating the public to eat insects in hopes of saving the planet or preventing starvation is playing God with the global food supply. The attempt by these companies to make protein production from a small family farms and dairies non-competitive and replace it with large industrialized insect production facilities is nothing short of a cash grab. It will further centralize the world's food production system and create a cartel of large companies with the ability to control global protein production. So what's the solution to this? Well, you could simply not eat their products, but that will have a limited impact on the global marketplace. With fewer people eating traditional protein, your steak will cost more. This is where Bitcoin can help have an impact. As a borderless, uncensorable currency, Bitcoin already allows people all over the world to buy and sell goods regardless of the strength of their national currencies. Somali farmers, South Sudan herdsmen can sell their products or currency that maintains value and can be instantly exchanged. Residents of these countries can even work in more advanced fields like tech and can be instantly paid in a secure currency. They can use their Bitcoin to buy food locally or internationally easier than their local fiat currency. This is already happening in parts of sub-Saharan Africa, South America, and Central America. Bitcoin can help the global economic playing field, allowing talented workers in marginalized regions to profit from their skills, rather than being victims of geography. But this doesn't solve the logistics problem of moving food from one country to another, does it? As more people around the world are willing to import food with a strong currency, markets will open up. Foreign food producers, hungry for profits, will lobby their governments to remove export restrictions. The Indian wheat producer may not be motivated by the weak Somali shilling, but a fair value payment in Bitcoin could be very attractive. Bitcoin, as an unmanipulatable currency, fosters free markets. As the government is less able to print money to subsidize certain food, market forces and consumer demand will drive food production. Farmers may rethink planting millions of acres of soybeans without a government check and will take cues from the market. These free market operations are the most efficient way to distribute the world's calories. Bitcoiners often say Bitcoin fixes this when confronted with big problems. In reality, Bitcoin alone doesn't fix anything. Free markets fix things. Bitcoin insulates free markets from government intervention. Bitcoin is the most powerful free market tool in modern history. It can uplift the poor, help feed a hungry planet, fix the global food supply, and maybe, just maybe, keep you from being forced to eat bugs.